or you will send for serum furosemide level. Okay. Good, 10 people have answered, let more people answer. It's all very simple now. The whole lecture is over. Oh. So 10 of you said A, do water deprivation test, and 7 of you said C, which is measured urine electrolytes. The correct answer is serum electrolytes. If a patient has polyuria, what are the two possibilities that you are thinking about? Diabetes insipidus, in which case your sodium will be high, serum sodium will be high, right? What is the other thing? Compulsive water drinking and polyuria, psychogenic polydipsia, in which case the serum sodium will be low. So, if you do serum electrolytes, you will come to know between the two. In one the sodium is low, in one the sodium is high. Why do you want to do a water deprivation test? Have you understood? So the next step is, correct answer is to do serum electrolytes. So we did the serum electrolytes, sodium is 141. If it was low, it was compulsive water drinking. If it was high, it was diabetes insipidus. What do you do if it is normal? Then you do water deprivation. Okay? Have you understood? So the water deprivation test is only done in a case of polyuria where the sodium is normal. Only if it is normal. Otherwise there is no role. And there was a lot of confusion. So I am not doing this audience response. A 24-year-old man is discharged after treatment for meningitis. He is producing 4 liters of urine per day. Sodium is 148, urine osmolarity 120. What is the reason? Polyuria, low urine osmolarity. I am not even doing audience response because I am presuming everyone will write. Okay, so it cannot be diabetes insipidus, or can it be? Yeah. Of course it can be diabetes insipidus. Okay. In SIADH, the sodium is low. Normal sodium 135 to 145. This is 148. It's on the higher side. This patient actually has diabetes insipidus. How do you approach hypernatremia? I told you, very simple. It just means patient needs more water, there is loss of water. We have to find out what is the source of water loss. Why are we scared with hypernatremia? It's because with hypernatremia the brain shrinks, and when the brain shrinks, there are these bridging veins. They get pulled and they can break, and you can get intracellular hemorrhage. So that's what you're worried about. So when you have hypernatremia, it means water loss. Where is the water loss? Is all that you do. As I told you, extrarenal easy. If there is polyuria, it is renal. Osmolarity is high, it's osmotic. Low is diabetes insipidus. Response to ADH is central. Doesn't respond is nephrogenic. So it's very simple. I have already taken this, so we'll go on to the next one. Yeah, this is important. How much water? Because you had asked the question, I need to answer that question. How much water should you give to a patient who is hyponatremic? Just like you can only increase hyponatremia by 12, same way you can only lower it by 12. Okay, safely. If you lower it too fast, then that water goes into the brain and you get cerebral edema. So when you have a patient coming with hyponatremia and cerebral edema, it's someone who probably had normal sodium or high sodium has been mistreated, okay, and has come to you and got that feature. Now, the issue is that the books tell you a formula 0.6 into weight into sodium minus 140 upon 140. That is a wrong formula. That only tells you how much is the total water loss to be replaced. It does not tell you how much is to be given in the next 24 hours. So the correct formula is 0.6 into weight into sodium minus sodium desired, which will be difference of 12 upon sodium desired, and that will give you the water deficit to be corrected in 24 hours. I will show you that by an example. Okay. These questions are very simple to answer. 80-year-old man admitted with fever following urinary tract infection. Okay. Sodium is 184, urine output is 600. What is the cause? Renal or extrarenal? Extrarenal. Renal would have been high. So it's an extravenous cause of potassium, extravenous. So fever, impaired thirst, altered sensorium are all responsible in this case. Now, how much dextrose will be prescribed in the next 24 hours? Let's do this as an audience response. How much dextrose will you prescribe this patient with a sodium of 184 for next 24 hours? So everyone answer this, it's an audience response. Let's see where you answer. Only 12 people have answered. Okay. So the amount of fluid this patient will get will depend on who is treating him. That's what it means, right? And the correct answer is about 3 liters, but you will see why. Let's get into the formula. So, what would you do? The total water deficit, because it's an elderly man, you have to change from 0.6 to 0.5. Women, you change from 0.6 to 0.5 into weight, 60 kg. Into 184 minus 140 upon 140 gives you 9.4 liters. Then you don't know, that's the deficit. How much do you give? Some people say give half today, give 1/3 next day, that's all wrong. What you need to calculate is how much to be corrected is 0.5 into weight, 184 minus 172, that's a difference of 12 upon 172, gives you 2.1 liters. So you need to give 2.1 liters to correct the deficit plus ongoing loss. Because the patient is running fever, you will add some amount of extra water, okay, so 500 ml or 750 ml. What I do is, insensible loss, I take as 500 if you're not having fever, 1000 if you're having fever, and add to that. So 2.1 plus, even if you add 1000, is 3 liters. That's how much you would replace. It's 3 liters over next 24 hours. So hyponatremia, again, very simple. Have you understood that question? Remove that case. This case was a patient who came with a sodium of 184 and he was started on rapid half saline etc. dextrose. He became conscious after 4 hours and then deteriorated and when they repeated the sodium it was 148. 184 to 148 in one day. So he developed cerebral edema and that's why this problem was there. Are you sure you're not tired?
No, we are not.
I am really surprised. Hyperkalemia is again a very short topic. Okay, but it's an interesting topic. A 48-year-old man presents with diabetic ketoacidosis to the ICU. pH is 7.1, potassium is 5, creatinine 1.4, pulse 110. What is the appropriate treatment at this stage? Now, all of you see diabetes. This is something you would see. I want you to know A, B, C, D. What would be the correct answer? Let's start audience response here. And everyone who treats diabetic ketoacidosis patient. What is the appropriate treatment at this stage? This comes to you. Switch on your handsets if they're off. Wow. We've got only limited answers, A and B. Okay, 10 and 13. A start insulin and give soda bicarb. B start KCL with insulin and avoid this. The correct answer is B. Many of you got it right. It would be suicidal, it will be fatal to start insulin and soda bicarb, and you will see why. A 54-year-old diabetic comes to the routine OPD for follow-up, asymptomatic, creatinine 1.6, sodium 138, potassium 6.5, chloride 109, bicarbonate 19.9. What is the most likely reason for hyperkalemia? few people have answered so far. Come on, handsets. All right. Majority of you say D, which is diabetic nephropathy. Okay. The correct answer is renal tubular acidosis. There is no renal problem. Okay. Fine. Let's go to the. So, hyperkalemia is a medical emergency if it's severe. Many times they're asymptomatic. Again, you get conduction abnormalities, but instead of excitement like ventricular tachycardia, you will get blocks and arrests. That's important. The important, and of course, you can also get weakness. But the most important thing is, in the ECG, the changes with hyperkalemia are over-exaggerated, meaningless and useless, except tall T's. And what does tall T tell you is not whether there is hyperkalemia or not. I remember when I was a houseman and patient had a potassium of 7.8 and my tutor said ECG is normal, that is a wrong report. It's not a wrong report. It just tells you whether it's acute or chronic. If there are tall T's, it's an acute thing and in a medical emergency. And if there are no tall T's, it means it's a chronic problem. And therefore, you have some time in which you treat it more definitely. It does not correlate ECG changes with the potassium level. Alright? What is a tall T? Tall T means that the T is taller than the R wave height in more than one lead. So if it's taller than the R wave in 2 leads, suspect hyperkalemia. And if it's in 4 leads, you're more likely to be right. 6 leads, you're more likely to be right. That is what it is. Okay, tall T's are the most important change. What is a sine wave? Is if the S wave merges with the T without an ST segment, that's a sine wave. Okay, a very bad sign. How do you approach hyperkalemia? Is it life-threatening? Stop any potassium going on. And I've seen this, that there's still a KCL drip going on and potassium is 7.8. So you need to stop that. Check for whether it's acute or chronic. Calcium gluconate to avoid toxicity. And seek and stop hidden sources of potassium. Burns, trauma, many drugs have potassium salts. You need to do that. Blood transfusions, etc. And then recheck it if you think it's spurious. The cause I made in the same way: spurious, true, and redistributional. Spurious is more common. Bad handily sampled, trauma during collection, pride, tourniquet, etc. You know this. Transcellular shift is very important. All metabolic acidosis will cause hyperkalemia due to transcellular shift except lactic acidosis. For some reason, in lactic acidosis you don't get hyperkalemia. For every 0.1 drop in pH, I told you potassium increases by 0.7. Mannitol and drugs, their beta stimulants cause hypokalemia, their beta blockers cause hyperkalemia. Succinyl choline, digitalis and cocaine, and then you can have hyperkalemic periodic dilatation. If it's a true loss, then you have got either a reduced GFR or a kidney problem or RTA type 2. Okay, so it's very simple. And for those who are postgraduates and want to know how to approach, it's not enough to say RTA type 4. You got to find the exact cause, in which case you actually do the aldosterone and renin level again. And if you have low aldosterone, it's primary hypoaldosteronism. You look at adrenal tuberculosis, hemorrhage, malignancy, etc. Heparin can cause that, ACE inhibitors can cause that. If you have aldosterone low and renin low, then secondary hypoaldosteronism, and the causes are interstitial nephritis, drugs like cyclosporin, and very, very important, diabetes. You need to treat this with fludrocortisone, 50 to 100 micrograms, usually 50 micrograms is good enough to treat them. And tubular unresponsiveness is analgesic nephropathy, SLE, potassium sparing diuretics, etc. The treatment of hyperkalemia is calcium gluconate to stabilize it. Rule of 10-10-10, 10 ml of 10% over 10 minutes. Now calcium chloride is available. We've switched over to calcium chloride. You can use a glucose insulin drip. The amount of glucose to be added, the insulin to be added is for every 25 grams you add 10 units of insulin. If the patient is already having high blood sugars, then you don't have to give so much of glucose. Beta stimulation. Okay. Now this is only for your exams. that you say you nebulize salbutamol to treatment of hyperkalemia, you require not less than 20 milligram of salbutamol to cause a minor change in serum potassium. Alright? What happens when you give asthmatic salbutamol 5 milligram? He does like this. Right? What happens when you give 20 milligram? They say that Devanand's grandfather was treated with 20 milligram salbutamol, and that's why Devanand was doing like this, right? So you don't use such high doses at all. Soda bicarb again is not a planned treatment for hyperkalemia. Only hyperkalemia associated with acidosis you give soda bicarb. If there is no acidosis, then you do not treat with soda bicarb. It's harmful. Excellent. In OPD practice you can use, in the ICU you straight to dialysis. And of course you treat the cause. Why in this patient did we say you should not give insulin? You should not give soda bicarb? The corrected potassium in this patient, which is, the potassium is 5, but if you correct it for a pH of 7.1, the corrected potassium is 2.9. When you have a potassium which is very low, you don't want to give soda bicarb without having given potassium to bring it up. Because anyways you're giving insulin. Okay, so these are some of the cases. We finished electrolytes. We finished fluid. I feel it's criminal to go on to acidosis, ABG interpretation for you, but we can take a vote. If you want it, we will take it. If you don't want it, we can skip it. I leave it to the organizers. What would you like to do? Let's have tea. Let's have a tea break. Okay? Because you should also appreciate that I'm not having a mic and I'm straining myself. So they didn't give me a mic.